Hi, everyone. My name is Marjorie Rawl. I am the Tirana Assistant Curator at the Fitchburg Art Museum. And I am so excited to be joined by the artist Steve Locke for this installment of Art Matters. Steve Locke is a New York-based artist and a professor at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. Locke received an MFA from the Massachusetts College of Art and Design in 2001 and holds bachelor degrees from both Boston University and Mass Art. He was artist in residence at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in 2016 and for the City of Boston in 2018, and has received grants from the Guggenheim Foundation and the Pollock Krasner Foundation, among many others. Locke has had solo shows at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Detroit, Gallery Caiaphas, and many, many others. And his photographic series, Family Pictures, is currently on view at the Fitchburg Art Museum. So Steve, thank you so much for joining me today.
Marjorie, thank you so much for asking me. Goodness gracious, I'm excited. I miss Fitchburg Art Museum. I wish I could come visit and see the show.
I know. The show misses you. I really wish you could come up here too. Maybe it's open for a while, so maybe.
Yeah, I'm sort of hoping during the semester break I can come with my like hazmat outfit.
That would be great.
I would gratefully do. The install is so beautiful, though. I saw photographs of the install, the wall painting and the text. It's absolutely exquisite. So
thank you.
When we did it at Caiaphas, I really loved the install there, but the install at Fitchburg is really something to see. It's absolutely exquisite.
Thank you. I'm really happy to hear that you're happy with it. So to get started, I kind of wanted to start really broad before we start talking about your Family Pictures series. And I wanted to ask, I watched an interview recently of yours with the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and you stated that you believe that all art has political content. And I think that's something really interesting. And I wanted you to maybe talk a little bit more about that. Why do you think it's important to connect visual art to its real world context?
Well, it's funny because sometimes we look at art as if it's outside of our world. Like, oh, I want to go so I don't have to think about right now. I want to look at something beautiful so I don't have to think about right now. But what we forget sometimes is that all the artworks were made in a particular context in a particular moment, right? So when you look at a Matisse painting, right, and you realize he's painting that painting in Nice because of the war, right? And you start to realize that like somebody is able to capture beauty even in a time of horrible, horrible devastation, right? So those things give the work depth. And so the politics of the moment are always wrapped up in the objects that we look at, you know? And I think that we can pretend that it doesn't. We can pretend that artworks are neutral, right? But we also have to remember that, you know, who gets to make art? Who gets to make these things? Who has the free time or who has the ability to make art making a job, right? All those things go into what ends up on the wall of a museum, right? Absolutely. People like you and me weren't even allowed to vote in this country, right? We weren't even considered human, right? And so what does it mean that people from that kind of background are now in the museum professions? Like, what does that do, right? And so that's what I mean when I say that all the art has a political content, because all of the art that's made is about the time in which it's made.
Absolutely. Even when, you know, artists are asserting that their art is sort of removed, you sort of called attention to like minimalism. And as much as an artist even themselves would want to assert like this is just about the object, I think it's a really interesting thing to remember that even that has political connotations.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
Right.
That is my jam. Like I love minimalism. I love modernism. Joseph Albers is like a huge influence on me. I love that stuff. You know, I never thought it was independent of politics. I mean, Albers was married to a Jew and fled Europe, you know, so his wife wouldn't be murdered. You know, I mean, like that, you can't tell me that that's not part of the modernist project.
Right.
That notion of freedom and escape, it's a huge part of it. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about the idea. So you have this body, this beautiful writing about family pictures that we included in our wall text. And you mentioned that it's rooted in the sort of spectacle of violence and Black death in our contemporary media environment. And so I was curious about the choice to have started there with sort of this like contemporary phenomenon and then choose historical images of violence. So why did you think it was important to sort of connect this specific past to this contemporary moment?
Well, you know, when I would hear about, you know, someone like Freddie Gray being murdered, or Eric Garner, or Breonna Taylor, not Breonna Taylor because that happened recently. So back in the sort of maybe about 5 or 6 years ago when I was working on family pictures, Alton Sterling and all these people who became Sandra Bland, all these people who became hashtags, right? Even though, and there was all this sort of stuff about showing the videos of people being killed,
Right.
right? And like, there's like you can't really show someone dying on television,
Right.
unless they're Black, right? Then you can show them being murdered over and over again. You know, I remember being in an airport and walking through the airport and seeing on CNN, they were playing the video of Eric Garner being strangled to death, like over and over again on a loop or something. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, why are you showing that, right? And then I realized, like, oh, there's an appetite for that. Like, people want to see Black people be killed. They want to see that. And I started to think, you know, this is not new. Like, this appetite for violence against Black people is not new. And I remembered that, you know, Without Sanctuary, that book had been done with all those historical images that were actually professional photographers came, made those images, printed them, and then brought them back and then sold them as postcards, and people sent them through the mail. So it was like, yeah, it's part of contemporary, the dominant culture's fetish for that kind of violence. They're excited by it. They're titillated by it. And so I said, well, let's stop talking about this as if it's new. Let's really talk about what this is. Let's talk about like the demonstration of violence against Black people as a means of social control. Right. And so that's where those images married those horrible frames, those cheesy, like, who buys those?
I don't know.
No, it's so, Marjorie, the first one I saw was Our Honeymoon. That was the very first one of those frames I saw. And I remember I was in the Hallmark store, and don't judge me for going to the Hallmark store. I love the Hallmark store. But I was in the Hallmark store and I thought, who, like, you were on your honeymoon.
Yeah.
Like, why do you need a frame that says, right? You know what I mean? Like, you were there, right? And so then I realized, oh, this is like an outward form of address. This is like to show other people how great I am. You know, it's really like driven out of some sort of weird ego thing. And then I thought, I know exactly the photograph that's supposed to go in there. And that's how it started. It started with Our Honeymoon. It was all right, let's talk about your honeymoon.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your honeymoon. Where'd you go? Right. Let's have a conversation about that.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. I wonder so you had that image for Our Honeymoon in your mind. Where did you source the rest of the images? Sort of, did you have like one source or?
There's a couple of sources. There's a wonderful sort of book called Without Sanctuary, which is about lynching photography in America. And then the Library of Congress has quite a few of those images as well.
Okay.
Right? So that's where I did the historical research. Without Sanctuary is a very difficult book. It's a very, and it's very matter of fact about what happened and where it happened and who did what and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. And I kind of feel that in your series as well, is it's sort of like, you know, you have the blank wall background and those primary colors. You've got the modernist sort of end table and the picture frames, but you're really forced to that's all you can see. There's no other context clues.
Right.
Really just sort of matter of fact, like, here it is.
Right. It's a side table in a room in a house. And that's the feeling I wanted to convey. And like all those colors that come out of the Benjamin Moore, like gracious living color family, you know, trying to make it clear that this is a domestic situation.
Yeah. What was the inspiration for bringing them into the into a very overtly domestic sphere, you know, of all places you could have cited these images in the photographs. Where'd that come from?
Well, you know, I wanted it to sort of make the link between that kind of violence and home, right? I think that all that sort of violence against Black people comes because Black people are perceived as a threat to white domestic life, right? Even though like Black people are just as American as anybody else, you know, like it's not like we're less American or more violent or any of that stuff. But that idea that like you can feel safe because we're doing this to Black people was a key part of it being a domestic space.
Right.
Because people are consuming those images of Black people being murdered in their own homes. They're watching them on television, they're looking at them on their phone, they're consuming them in these domestic spaces. So I wanted to make that connection as clear as I possibly could without being super theatrical about it. Like I didn't want to build a set or anything. I just had a very small amount of space in my studio at the time that I set up. Interesting.
So I wanted to ask how you feel about the work being referred to as difficult. You know, I've read a lot of many articles about it, many a think piece about these being hard to look at. And I'm also thinking too of, you know, your auction block memorial proposal and just all of this controversy around difficult work. And so I'm wondering what motivates you to foreground these histories, and these histories that are often either unacknowledged or purposefully ignored in the public realm. You know, what draws you to make work like that?
You know, Marjorie, it's funny because I don't really, sometimes I wish I made like, you know, like paintings of bunnies or something, like something like I really wish that
very innocuous.
You know what I mean? But I don't have that. Like I don't, that's not what I got. And I think that even in the earlier work, which was so much about loss and you know, living through the AIDS epidemic and the effect of disease on the body and losing so many people, like having them cut off quite literally in the prime of their lives, you know. That's just the world that I lived in. And I think that this is the thing about stuff that's difficult. Like it's not easy for me to make.
Right.
You know, like people, I don't want people to think that I am, like I'm not like that.
Whistling while you're working, right? Yeah.
Right. You know, it's very difficult to take this on. When I was working on Killers, the plan was to make like 100 of those drawings, and I had to stop because it was really like when Ahmaud Arbery was murdered, when he was lynched by those two men, I started to draw the killers and I just got sick to my stomach. I couldn't do it. So it's not easy for me to make this work, but I feel like it's I don't have much of a choice in the subjects that I pick. And I think the thing that makes them difficult, like I'm a very happy person. Like I have a tremendous amount of joy in my life, right? I don't need art to make me feel good. I think that there's a lot of things that have happened that I see, and I think that everybody else sees them too, Marjorie. I don't think I'm the only one who sees it.
No.
But I don't have the ability to pretend. That's what I don't have.
Right.
And so if I was gonna like make a artwork about the city of Boston, right? I don't have the ability to pretend. When you ask me to do something like that, it's like, okay, I can do that.
Right.
Or if you ask me to talk about the Boston Public Library, right? Yeah, I can do that. It's not going to be like a glorious thing about the library. It's going to be about reflection and memory and thinking about all the things that have happened there, right? And I think my work is, I try very hard to make it as beautiful as possible.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you achieve that.
I try to make people look at something. I try to make people look at something that they know is happening. I'm not trying to show anyone anything new. for the most part. I'm just trying to get them to acknowledge what already exists.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So beyond family pictures, you have a few bodies of work, like Killers, you just mentioned, the installation you did for the Gardner Museum, the Three Deliberate Grays for Freddie, that investigate the culture of images on the internet that we're seeing on social media platforms, the mainstream news media. And I guess this sort of links to what you were just talking about is, what do you think art can do in order to sort of interrupt or disrupt our culture of images, or our maybe inclinations to pretend or whitewash? What do you think visual art is doing to sort of combat that?
I think that there's all sorts of interesting things happening on the internet right now, to distract us from what's happening in the world, right? I think that when you're scrolling, or doom scrolling is what they call it now.
Yep.
So you can see, like, an ad for a new wallet, and Eric Garner being murdered, and like all this sort of stuff, and the feed all becomes like one sort of thing, right? So everything gets equalized in this weird way. Sort of like the way Susan Sontag talks about photography being able to equalize everything, right? What I can do as an artist is like reach into that stream and pull something out and make you pay attention to it, like slow you down enough to pay attention to it, so it stops being part of a spectacle and starts being a container for ideas. Like, there's an artist in I think in Texas or New Mexico, I have to check, but his name is Vincent Valdez.
Okay.
Who's done beautiful work in the same sort of idea with internet imagery, like pulling that imagery out and recasting it as paintings and drawings. So you're just, you forget where the image came from.
Right.
And you start looking at it like, oh my God, is that what, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Right. And he's able to re-inject the presence, the humanity into these images, right? But I think the internet is really, the internet isn't good or bad, right? I think that there's a way in which people are using the internet for not very good purposes. And you also combine that with the fact that people aren't able to interrogate images anymore.
Right.
People think that all images are true or something. Like if I make a picture of myself and I put a big X through it, like somehow that's going to hurt me. It's like, no, it's just a picture. It's like, it's different when it's a document of someone being murdered or something like that. That's a different thing.
Right.
But just an artwork is like no one's being hurt in an artwork.
Right.
It's okay.
Right. Right. And this actually brings up another question that, so you, as a multimedia artist, you paint, you draw, you make sculpture, you do photography. So what was it about the family pictures idea that made you choose photography in particular?
Oh, that's a really good question. First of all, thank you for calling me a multimedia artist. That's very sweet. I always think of myself as a painter. I never think of myself. Yeah, I do. I really, really do. It's funny. And even though I do all these other things, I think, oh, I'm a painter. It's like, well, actually, no, you're not. So stop that. But I think with family pictures, it had to live in photography. Like it had to live, because so much of it was about mediated culture.
Right.
Right. And I thought I could repaint these photographs, but they already exist. Like, why would I make something that has already been made? Right. And then I could get to it through painting by changing that wall color in behind.
Right.
So that was like the painterly part of family pictures, was that idea that I could remake this environment with a domestic idea about color.
Right.
So like the yellow might be the kitchen, and the red might be the parlor, and the green might be the family room, and the blue might be the dining, like, so it might be a different room in the house, right?
Right.
And all that would be communicated just through color, right? But like the Freddie Gray was painting, right? And it was mediated, right? But I did take those 3 images of Mr. Gray and I averaged the pixels so I would get a monochrome. And then I went to my palette and I mixed those colors.
Yeah.
So it really was very much rooted in painting, right? It was taking the digital and translating it into painting. And for killers, it was weird because I could have just used the photographs of those killers, but there was something about redrawing them
Right.
in a portrait with a sort of trying to make them as particular as I could with a graphite pencil on
Yeah.
that huge white expanse of paper.
Yeah.
It sort of made everyone else. It made them it let them float in their whiteness, right? Which is what that project was about.
Right.
And so using the photograph and just like using Photoshop to erase the background, it would have been too. It would have been too cartoony, right?
Yeah.
It would have felt kitsch,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I was making a green screen drawing or something, right?
Right.
But in re-rendering them, it's like, why the hell are you drawing these people? Why are you drawing these awful people? Yeah, and that's the question. That really becomes the question in the work.
Right. Right. So, what are you working on right now, Steve? Do you have a new series that you're working on currently?
I did a proposal for a memorial in France, a slavery memorial in France. That's on my website. You can see. So I'm waiting to hear back about that. I don't think I'm going to give it.
Really?
But
I really liked it. I saw the renderings.
It's funny because I'm just like a guy. Like, I'm not like a big architecture firm,
Right.
So but when I saw the call, I thought I'm gonna try this, right? And I worked with the people I worked with for the Boston project.
Right.
Wonderful Patty Seitz and Julian Phillips, like my wonderful team. So we put together a proposal. So we'll see what happens. And then I'm still making paintings based on the auction block motif in my relationship with Albers. And I started working on tapestries too from my time. Yeah, it's weird.
Multimedia.
Well, yeah, but,
multimedia artist.
But it's still painting, right? Because tapestry is woven, and it's cell by cell, it's grid by grid, dot by dot, right?
That's really interesting. That even in different media, you're always bringing that painterly lens, even if you're not using a brush and some paint.
It's the way I understand the world, Marjorie. I don't really like I've worked on other photographic projects, but I still keep thinking about them as paintings. Like it's just the way my brain works.
Right.
And so that's it. And I'm working on a new body of auction block paintings. I think I said that. Yeah, I'm still working on those. I'm painting one right now that's over there. I'm not going to show it to you because it's not done.
Okay.
Not even close to
a
done.
Sneak peek. Awesome. Well, Steve, those sort of cover all of my questions. I am so grateful that you spent time with me today to talk about your work. I think our audiences will really appreciate this sort of window into your work, and I hope they continue coming to see the show.
Well, that museum is a gem. It really, really is. And the work that you do in community and the work you do to make art accessible to people, even something as simple as having the wall labels in multiple languages, that is like something that every museum can learn from. And it's really, I feel hugely privileged to be a part of that collection and to be in that show.
Yeah, and we're happy to have you. We try our best. And that's sort of the point of conversations like these is like, I hope that our conversation opens a different, accessible window into, experiencing your work and getting a different view on it. So thank you so much for spending your time with me this morning. And thank you again.
All right. You stay safe. Wear a mask, everybody.
Yes, everybody.